What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Welcome. We hit double digits. As you can see, folks, we are missing Sanjay and Richard today. I am Richard today.
Sherry, we want you. The question is, how do you spell Sherry's last name? No, the question is, what were you doing just before you signed on?
And a lot of people are eating. They're eating.
We want details if you were eating. Oh, a shawarma. Oh,
shawarma. Washing dishes. It's all
Carol,
food related so far.
Carol, it's about time that you did your dishes.
And we have a special guest, as you will see, that we will get to. Sherene, the lovely and talented Sherene, is here with us. Making gifts.
Thrilled to be with you all.
All right. Well, it's time to get started. And for those just joining us, once again, the question is, what were you doing just before you joined us? And,
perhaps the stupidest question we've ever asked, Jeff, I think.
We were going to ask a very serious question, but I like this one better. So, and Sanjay's not here to make fun of me. So welcome, everybody, to this edition of Every Other Wednesday. I'm Jeff Tobe. Mike, good for you, December 10th, 2024. And I'm in actually Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where it's snowing all of a sudden. We haven't had snow yet, so this is our first snowfall. I am a professional speaker in the arena of customer experience and very excited to be here on Every Other Wednesday. Mike, you look shocked or surprised.
I look shocked. No, I love the live weather reporting. That was awesome. You just glanced out and then we got a live real-time update on the weather. That was awesome.
My neighbor is taking out her garbage right now.
Yeah, there you go. If the speaking ever dies out, Jeff, you've got a career as a weatherman.
Mike.
Hey everyone, Michael Kerr here.
Wait. They're correcting you. They're correcting you.
What?
It's not the 10th.
It isn't? Oh, it's the 11th.
It might be in Canada. We don't know.
Did we start over? Wait. Oh, that's too funny. Actually, last Sunday was pretend to be a time traveler day. So can that be my excuse? I'm actually coming to you from yesterday.
How was it?
It was great. Oh, now I've messed up my sign.
Oh,
December 11th.
Right. Thank you, Jerry. Details. Go ahead. 2024.
Do we have the year right? That would be bad if we didn't have the year right. Hey, Michael Kerr here from, as I usually am, Canmore, from Alberta, Alberta in the Canadian Rockies, outside of Calgary, right next door to Banff National Park. I speak and write about workplace culture. And today also, besides being the 11th of December, is official Kaleidoscope Day. Stretching day. We should do some stretches every like 5 minutes during this thing. It is International Mountain Day, so a good day for where I'm living, and it is official Magnum PI Day.
So wow, I remember that show. Perfect.
With the mustache.
And we obviously have a guest host who needs to be introduced, and I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Sherene McHenry. She is the People IQ expert. I want to know more about that, where you got that name, by the way, but after your introduction. Sherene is on a mission to transform lives, leaders, and organizations around the globe. She's got a PhD in counseling. She was a graduate professor for almost 2 decades before leaving to speak full-time. She's spoken, so she has something to speak about, unlike us, Mike. But anyway, she's spoken on 3 continents, authored a syndicated column and multiple books. She's been quoted in numerous publications, including Wall Street Journal, which highly impresses everybody. Her mother, you didn't give me a chance. It says pause. It says pause right here. Impressed her mother. Anyway, it was supposed to be a funny line, I guess. So, but when she's not working, you'll usually find her out on the lake in the summer or downhill skiing in the winter. The faster, the better. Welcome, Sherene.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I trampled on the laugh line. Nothing like stealing a joke.
That's okay. It's your joke, so you're welcome to steal it. Well, let's get serious. I mean, we're here to talk about psychological safety. And I've mentioned to you and to the audience before when I was telling them last time that you would be our guest, that we have had a segment on psychological safety quite a while back, but I had the good fortune to hear Sherene present um, her a full day session, and loved it so much, and the kind of the perspective you have, that I'm so excited to have you. Sherene is coming to us out of Michigan, right?
And
Where
it's snowy here as well.
Right, where they have huge mountains. Yeah, anyway, so let's start with the basics. I mean, unless you're living under a rock, you know, you don't know what psychological safety is, but let's start with that. What is psychological safety? And most importantly, why does it matter to organizational cultures?
So psychological safety is a term that was coined by Dr. Amy Edmondson. She's a Harvard researcher and professor, and it is the belief that we are not going to be ridiculed, shamed, or punished for speaking the truth, for sharing an idea, for being ourselves, or for reporting a problem or a mistake. And so its foundation is trust, that we can fully show up, be ourselves, and be the best version of ourselves. And why it's so important to organizational culture is it underpins everything, in my humble opinion. If we feel safe, you're going to get the best out of us. If the people that you lead feel safe, they're going to come forward with their best ideas. And when they don't, people kind of go what I call vanilla. They just shut down, they self-protect, they don't take risk, and the whole organization suffers. And people know whether or not it's safe because they're always watching. So they don't have to be the target of anybody's bullying or sarcasm or rolled eyes or punishment, because they're watching. And the leader is the one who sets the tone every time.
So on that note, Sherene, and we talk about this a lot in different ways, because it really is such a critically important topic. We totally agree. So, but on that note of people watching and being aware, what are some of the red flags that we should be aware of that maybe indicates, oh, this is not a psychologically safe meeting or team or environment?
So I think individually, what we are looking for is, are people ridiculed? Are they made fun of? Is sarcasm used as a weapon? Sarcasm can be an incredible form of humor, but not when it's aimed at somebody with a bite. And then is there eye rolling? Are people talking about people behind other people's backs? Anything that somebody does behind your back to you, they will do that to other people. And so you just need to pay attention. People are either safe or they're not safe. And people will tell you who they are. I think my favorite all-time quote is Dr. Maya Angelou: when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time.
I thought that was my wife's quote. She says that to me all the time.
She's a brilliant woman, Jeff, a brilliant woman.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, please.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, organizationally, we're going to look also at what happens in large meetings, what happens in small meetings, what's going on within an organization that is a clue as to whether or not there's psychological safety. And there are a lot of clues that are pointing toward whether your organization, a department, or a leader is psychologically safe.
That's a great segue, because you may work in a tight team that you feel psychologically safe, but the organization itself does not project that kind of image or has that kind of culture. How do you prepare yourself? You're fine in your little team, but now I've got to make a presentation, or I've got to, go to the executives and tell them something. How do I prepare myself if knowing that it's not psychologically safe?
So I always look at things from a point of view of problem solve, problem manage. So when you're the leader, you have the power to problem solve. You can say, we don't do that in this team. That's not how we're going to behave. We're going to disagree. We're going to do it civilly. That is problem solving. And the leader has and needs to exercise the power to do that. When it's somebody above you, even when it's peer-to-peer across the departments or even within your own department, you do not have the power to change things. You have the power to impact them, but you don't have the power to change them. And so I think that we take risks, we watch what happens, we're astute, we watch what other people are doing, and then we move quickly into problem management and trying to solve a problem that is unsolvable. And so from a problem management point of view, I will self-protect. I will be much more careful about what I share and how I share it in larger groups. And that's why it's so destructive to organizational culture, because people begin to self-protect, and then people take their voices out of the equation, and people walk on eggshells. And when we're forced to do that, organizations lose every single time.
Yeah, for
When
sure.
you mentioned voices, losing our voice, is it fair to say that a lack of psychological safety, low psychological safety on a team in a workplace, creates a situation, an environment where voices start to meld together because we feel like we have to sound like one another, we have to talk like our boss, we have to use those same buzzwords, and we almost lose part of our authentic personality, and we speak like the Borg collective on Star Trek, all with one
Oh,
voice.
it's a brilliant insight, Mike. And I was thinking back to the most dysfunctional department and leader I've ever worked under. And I bloodied my head against a brick wall. I didn't understand problem solve, problem manage at this point. So I'm still trying for years to problem solve, and then being the one who's bloodied and beaten up because the system and the individuals beat you up. But we hired in a new guy, and he was not psychologically safe, didn't have really good mental health. And he literally would spend his time hanging out in her office, and then he would come to meetings and he would literally parrot her voice. And it was the most bizarre overt I've ever seen of currying favor. He was just a little mini that person.
Wow.
It was so distasteful, and it was so shocking just to watch that. That's overt, observable. Most of the time it's much more subtle, but we do toe the party line. It's groupthink. We're afraid to say something different. And when you surround yourself with yes people who tell you what you want to hear in an organization, you are going to have problems. All we have to do is look back at the historical Bay of Pigs and JFK's presidency, where it sounded like a good idea, but if somebody had been thinking critically and felt safe, people might have disagreed, and we might have handled that very differently.
Mhm. Do you mind sharing with us, Sherene, and you can say yes, you mind, but I know that you did work in a psychologically unsafe environment for quite a while in the educational world. Do you mind sharing that experience and what it
I
was like?
don't I don't mind at all. And the Chronicle of Higher Education is the newspaper for higher education. And one day on the front page of the Chronicle, it said, people with personality disorders flourish in higher education. And I went, oh my gosh, there's actually research out there that supports my experience.
Right.
It was, as this one person in particular came into being the department chair who has the most impact on a faculty member, it was interesting because she was leading a meeting. I spoke up on somebody's behalf, and she gave me a look, and it was the first time in all the years I had been in higher ed that I went, I'm not safe. I just got in this woman's sights. And as a tenured full professor, when you start feeling unsafe as a tenured full professor, it's bad. But here's what I watched happen with me. She motivated us by fear. She was always peddling fear. This is just a doomsday catastrophe, which in the beginning I bought because I didn't see the lie of it. And then it was always manipulation and lies. And again, in the beginning, I bought the lies because there wasn't evidence to the contrary, but it began to get on my radar screen. But I watched me being a vibrant, excited person who loves helping and being parts of things to literally, I went to bland, vanilla, fade into the woodwork, only spoke basically when I was spoken to. And by the end of it, it was as I was getting ready to leave, which was the good thing, because I had a really great job. I mean, if you look from the outside world, it was a great job, but my heart was to speak full time. And so the beauty of it is it forced me to figure out how to deal with difficult, unsafe people. And that has been a platform for what I'm able to help the world with. So I just took my toys and went home. And by the end, I even chose not to go to faculty meetings because logic had no place. It was the most bizarre thing. You've got her, you've got the guy parroting her. If she's not there, he's being her. And decisions are based purely on what she wants, based on anything that has any semblance to logic. I literally reached a point mentally and physically, and I'm going back there, I can actually feel it. I'm getting an emotional response. I couldn't even take going to those meetings. And so I opted out of attending. I went into work, I stayed in my office. And then her last form of punishment for me was to dock me for the hours that I didn't show up. And
Right.
yeah, that was her last jab. So I called HR and I just said, listen, is this going to affect my paycheck? And they said no. And I'm like, I'm not taking that battle on. To dock me
Yeah.
as many hours you want. It started affecting my paycheck. It's going to be a different
Right.
conversation.
That's
But one of
it's
those
so
things that
heartbreaking.
one of
Isn't
those
it?
things you say, I'm sorry, Mike, but one of the things you say is turnover never lies. And I love that saying, right? Because if you can, before you take a position, check out their turnover, because that says a lot.
Oh my gosh, turnover is a key indicator. And so you asked earlier, Mike, about how do you know if it's safe? There are going to be pockets within unhealthy organizations where there is rampant turnover.
Right.
And I believe with all of my heart that is always a leadership problem. And one of two things is happening. The leader is toxic, or the leader is allowing toxicity on their watch. And literally all you have to do is keep your eyes open. My mother was a beloved principal and she had no turnover in the years that she was a principal. They brought in a toxic, psychologically unsafe person after her, and 3/4 of that staff turned over within 2 years.
Wow.
And the administration, in their great wisdom, said no more changing buildings. There will be no more changes. And I just went, oh my gosh, you just protected the most psychologically unsafe person you have ever brought into that building. And anyone who was loyal, who did not jump ship fast enough, is now tied to this person who makes them miserable. And then their absenteeism goes up, people's psychological issues go up, people's physical well-being and medical expenditures go up, because we are not separate from our minds and our anxiety and our bodies. When we are under high stress, which really toxic, highly psychologically unsafe workplaces have that, we are under so much stress. Our bodies get flooded with hormones. It's a gateway to disease. Again, we see mental health issues. And when I went so bland, I was depressed. And as a faculty member, I got all summer off. And on the 1st of August, I started to mourn every year because it meant that the school year was coming again. And I still had 2 more weeks of vacation. But that's how bad it was. I would literally physically mourn that I had to go back.
That's horrible, isn't it? It's so frustrating. And leaders, organizations have to realize the impact they are having on people's mental and physical health. It is huge when we don't have that sense of belonging, which I'd like to talk about at some point, because I think these topics are related, right? And psychological safety. Your story reminds me of when I've worked in psychologically unsafe spaces, and this phenomenon too, and tell me if this sounds familiar. What used to happen all the time was, not only was there not effective communication, there was groupthink, there was all the things you've described so far, but there was also this tendency to always be guessing what the senior leaders wanted and making these decisions based on fear and guessing that they probably, and it used to drive me nuts, right? Like, we were guessing that they might be upset if we did this, so let's not do this.
It's the walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
And the thing is they don't have to be psychologically unsafe every single day. They only have to do it enough that our bodies stay in high alert, and we're always walking on those eggshells wanting to please them because we want to avert the negative consequence if we don't. And I love that you had the wherewithal to go, this is not right. We're guessing on major decisions. That's a way you bankrupt a company. That's the way that you tank your numbers. I mean, this is bottom line stuff we're talking about. And I believe with all my heart, when psychological safety exists, people and organizations flourish. And when it doesn't, there are always consequences for the individual as well as for the organization.
Yeah.
Totally. What's the biggest mistake that leaders make to undermine psychological safety?
I think they either allow themselves free rein and they don't take care of themselves enough to screen. Like, I can think psychologically unsafe comments, but I work really hard on my mental health, my bandwidth, so that they don't escape out of my mouth. So number one, they give themselves a pass and not taking care of themselves. I think that's one of them. And then the second one is they turn a blind eye and they don't believe somebody when they say there's a problem. And here's why they don't believe somebody, because these people, particularly those with personality disorders and some mental health issues, they have run the table. They groomed that leader from the day they arrive. They adopt them as their friend. They start becoming best friends with their spouse. They go to their children's soccer games and they present themselves to this person as the next best thing that has ever existed. And so when a loyal person says there's a problem, they're like, what are you talking about? She's fantastic. And I learned that people behave very differently in front of leaders and people that they want to impress, groom, and manipulate than they do when they're not there.
You know,
so can I tell? Go ahead.
I just want to say you probably answered Carol's question in the chat box, asking if when that happens, isn't it you're dealing with someone with borderline personality disorder? So,
yeah, narcissism, borderline, any of those personality disorders. And here's what the normal person, I would consider us the normal people, need to realize is you can't. Okay, it's definitely you too.
Well,
I'm the
Sanjay's not
normal
here.
one on the panel.
Sanjay's not here, so it's okay. Go ahead.
So here's what I'm thinking is, I was ill-equipped. I had done my mental health work. I learned conflict resolution skills. I love training on conflict resolution skills. And I believe that that works with 80% of the population. I want you happy. I want to be happy. If there's a problem, you talk to me. I'll work with you. I will play ball. But then you get these people with personality disorders or people who are lacking conflict resolution skills and are afraid. And so they come out guns blazing at you or they eviscerate you, which everybody's watching. I don't know where I was going with that. Hold on a second. Can you help me?
Yeah, no.
Did the train go off the tracks? Did you?
The train
happens
just
to me all the time, Sherene, all the time. You got your train of thought got derailed.
We also
Thank you
take
for the
great
psychological
pleasure.
safety.
Yeah, we take great pleasure in watching our guests go off the track. No, we'll come back to it. So, Jenny says it happens every day. So
thank you for grace, y'all. That's psychological safety. Like when somebody you could do right there, because this is your podcast, you could just go, oh, and a simple rolling of your eyes, and everybody would know, don't do that. So don't talk.
Yeah.
It can be that subtle. So
well, and the difference between laughing with and laughing at someone, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we were just laughing with you, all of us, versus laughing at you, which makes us feel very unsafe.
Right.
And I felt safe and I felt beloved and covered instead of going, oh my gosh, what did I just start to say?
And we also have good editors. So no, I'm kidding.
We're not editing that out.
Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to ask a question, Jeff. Were you going to ask?
Me too. So
what? Can I ask mine?
Please do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for making me feel safe.
Michael has a bit of a man cold today, so we're being very nice to him.
So yeah, thank you. So if I'm a step behind, I'm blaming it on my man cold, the worst affliction known to humankind. So Sherene, let's bring this. Let's talk about some solutions to this. Some positive things we can do, and I want to bring it down to the level of a meeting, which is in my mind always a microcosm of the larger culture. Right? Our meetings should reflect our desired culture. They should help build our desired culture. What can I do as a leader in a meeting to help create the safest possible environment for people in that meeting?
I love this question because as the leader goes, so goes the team. It's the leader's responsibility. So somebody is snarky, somebody makes a disrespectful comment, like rolling your eyes and like, oh, that's going to work, or whatever it is, you stop the meeting and you say, one of two things. One is the tone of this conversation is no longer professional in nature. That's all you have to say. And the leader says it, the group listens. The other thing that you can say is, hey, let's put a pause here. We are going to disagree and we will do it civilly. And then you pause and you say that with your serious leader. Listen to the difference. Hey, we're going to disagree, but we're going to disagree civilly. That doesn't work. We are going to disagree. It's going to make us better, and we will do it civilly. That's
Perfect.
all a leader has to do in a group. The other thing is when you see two people talking on the side, you have multiple meetings. You don't have a meeting. You've cued and said that it is okay to have multiple meetings. And that's where people start feeling unsafe because maybe they are making a joke about something, but the person hears it as they are being laughed at and ridiculed. And there's a good chance that they're making a snarky remark. And so what you want to do is stop your meeting. It's like, hey, we're going to be in one meeting. Come on, you guys, let's stay focused.
So using that example, if I'm a frontline employee, not a leader in that meeting, and I see that behavior and I'm not impressed by it, and my leader doesn't say anything, should I speak up as just a participant in the meeting?
So here's what I love: problem solve, problem manage. I believe it's my responsibility to try to problem solve, but I also believe it's my responsibility to be wise and to protect my psychological well-being and safety. And so if you know it's unsafe, I would not take it on. I would survive. Literally, that's what I would do. If you feel like you have a chance of actually making a difference, I would say something. And then I might, as a co-person, just say, hey, guys, let's be civil. Or, hey, let's pay attention. Sherene's speaking. Those are the types of things that you can say that are not like real directive, but call it for what it is. And people will tell you who they are after you do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So Stephen wants to know, how can you approach the boss about the angel who is everyone else's devil?
Yeah, that reminds me of where I was going before. So,
Good. Yay. Thank you, Stephen.
you, Stephen.
He read your mind.
So, here's what you need to know is some people have protected status, and it is better to bring somebody like me in if you have the power to do that, to work with your organization, because I can say stuff that nobody else can do. But it's a hard battle when somebody has groomed somebody and they behave so well in front of that person. So I had a boss who was very psychologically unsafe. And when we were colleagues, he would, anytime I had the audacity to disagree with him, he would literally rage at me. His chest got bigger the first time he came across the desk or table and just was yelling in my face, spitting on me, raging.
Wow.
And I went into his office afterward and I said, have I offended you? Can we talk about this? And he just erupted again. And he did this about 6 times over 8 years. And then he became my boss. And every time he would kick me out of his office and continue his raging. And that was peer to peer. I tried to give him the courtesy of a closed door conversation. So he became my boss. And I thought, well, what am I going to do about this? And I thought, well, I'm going to say something to him. Maybe smart, maybe not. But this is what I did. I went into his office and I said, hey, if you ever take me on again in public, I will take you on back. And we were a union shop. And so I felt like a 2-year-old. I said, and if you treat me unfairly, I will grieve you. And I felt like I was going to stomp my foot there. But then that was all fine. And I would repeat that. I would have thought my last sentence, but not said it out loud. But I made the mistake of saying, you're not safe. At which point, you're not safe. You're the one who's not safe. Get out of my office. So I went, okay. And I went, I will never talk to this man alone again. Well, he's mad at me. Now he's being vindictive. And I do something that angers him. And he sends me a letter of reprimand instead of talking to me about it for my employee file. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me, pal. So I didn't say that to him, but I thought, what are my options? And what the research says is when somebody is incredibly destructive, that you need a powerful third party to be able to make the change. That I did not have the power to make any change. I had tried to problem solve for years, never worked. So I called up the dean's office and said, I'd like a meeting with the dean and with my chair. They're like, sure, Sherene. And this was a life-changing day for me. The man who had raged at me, anytime I had the audacity to disagree with him, walked into the dean's office, and instead of acting like a huge alligator, he acted like a newborn kitten. It was shocking. And I went, oh, I get it. People behave differently in front of people of power because he's not going to look like a jerk in front of his boss. And because of that, we were able to create a win-win solution. I worked with him as my boss for about 8 years. We never had another problem. And I was sad when he left because I had grown to respect him, appreciated, considered him a friend. And probably most importantly, in a really dysfunctional department, he was an ally. And I was sad when he left.
So what I'm hearing you say is with these stories is that, like most speakers, entrepreneurs, we're not entrepreneurs. We're just unemployable. Is that what you say?
Well, I'll tell you what, I like my boss now a lot better.
Good. Yeah, that's true. And I'm still getting used to mine. So, in your book, Navigate, I hope I get this right. You've got a whole thing on sliders, gliders, hackers, slackers. Can you go through that? Because I really found it interesting. Obviously, I didn't listen well enough to get the whole thing, but
you did very well. So we have high flyers. Those are people driven, competitive, hardworking, reliable, conscientious. They only feel good when a job is done. So they make leadership look really easy. They can turn into what I call hackers, people who are causing problems when they're overburdened and they feel like they're doing more than their share. And then they turn their guns either on the boss, on the group, or on the individual that they have deemed the unworthy slacker. We have steady gliders, reliable, hardworking, conscientious. They want to be on your team. They do not want to lead your team. They want to contribute. They are very people-centered and they're value-based. And they want to come in at 8. They want to be done at 5. And they will take less pay and turn down promotions because they don't want to have to think about work outside of work. And so the big thing as a leader is, how do we give them loft? How do we mentor them? How do we let them shine? And then we have lackers, the boss I just described, who's lacking conflict resolution skills. I look at things as a mindset problem or a skill set problem. If it's a skill set problem, skill set training works. If it's a mindset problem, skill set training will never work. You got to address what's going on. And so this man, the rager, was lacking conflict resolution skills, and he was probably afraid of conflict. So you can have both of them. So when people learn how to do that in a constructive way, then they can be safe. But all of us have points where we're headed into the brick wall, and the leader's job is, how do we get them over the brick wall? Mindset problem, skill set problem, adjust your modifications.
Of those two, mindset or skill set, what do you think is more prevalent?
I think it's mindset more than skill set, because when you send somebody to skill set training and it works, it's easy. That's all they needed. When I was in my first job, I was a terrible fit. I had trained people for 2 years at the University of South Carolina as a graduate assistant how to interview. I could get any job. I might not keep it for more than an hour or two, but I just knew how to interview. And if any leader has ever interviewed somebody who gave you all the right answers and you were so excited to hire, and then they get there and they're completely different, number one, that was me. And number two, I apologize. People like me train them how to do that. So anyway, I'm in a terrible job. I'm not using my skill sets. I'm not getting my work done. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm too afraid to ask. I don't have the mental health to ask. I just don't even ask. And I just keep hoping nobody will notice, and nobody calls me on it. But my boss decides to invest about $1,000 to send me to a Franklin Covey time management seminar. And it didn't work. It wasn't a time management problem. It was, I didn't know what I was doing. I was depressed and I had the imposter syndrome. And I was afraid to ask for help and to admit that I didn't know what I was doing. And so this one, they threw all kinds of skill set money at. But had she said to me, I'm concerned about you, what's going on? You're not getting your work done. Need for you to get it fixed, because you got to pull your weight, because it's impacting the team and our services. If she had said that, would have been very different. And you just approach it as a leader from point of care. I care about you. Help me understand what's going on. And then you hold them accountable for figuring it out. And I did go to counseling, and I figured out who I was, and then became a professor, and then figured out I really wanted to be a speaker. So, so those are high flyer, steady glider, lacker. And then we have slackers, who, that's the derogatory term. I like to call them rockets. And rockets are people who, they get a job and they do not activate. They think about it, but they don't activate until the deadline comes. And they've already thought about a lot. So they work very hard, fast, and quickly once the deadline comes. And so the wise leader, if they want a high performance rocket, does two things. They always hold deadlines. They do not give passes on deadlines, and they hold quality control. And just like rockets can launch things to Mars and beyond, you want these people on your team. They have a rocket wisdom. They're always figuring out the easiest, fastest, best way to do stuff. And the people who don't understand this call them lazy. The people who understand this say, wow, we keep being asked to do more with less. Maybe we should tap into the easiest way to do this so we can get these tasks done more quickly. And these people also shine when there's an emergency, because it's just kind of like everything activates and they go, oh, all you have to do is this. So I think rockets are very misunderstood. And when they're managed correctly, they can be absolute high performers, incredible rock stars on your team. And if not, you're probably going to become a hacker and start taking it out and making it psychologically unsafe, because they'll drive you to drink if you don't understand deadlines and quality control. And then the last one are the hackers. And the research with the Gallup poll says 33% of Americans self-report being engaged and committed to their work and workplace, 50% report being passively disengaged. And then a whopping 17% of 85,000 American workers actually self-report that they are disengaged and trying to cause problems. And so you got to be prepared. So under the hackers, these are the people who negatively impact psychological safety. You have the lacker hacker, lacking conflict resolution skills, come out. And what they're saying to you is, if you dare cross me, I will eviscerate you. There will be hell to pay. And they only have to do it to one person because everybody else is watching. And then you have the covert hackers. They do it all behind your back. They gossip, they do innuendo, they lie, they misdirect. It's all the art of the manipulation. And that's like a cancer, and you usually don't know it until it exists and you start having problems and people are beginning to question your integrity. And then the last one is the overt hacker. They do it in front of you. Again, as subtle as an eye roll, a sarcastic, biting comment, in your face, yelling, blowing up, raging, or even we see in today's world, unfortunately, physical violence. So those are my 5 types. And boy, you gotta take care of the ones so that people don't begin, all of us can be hackers. But how do we take care of the people so that they don't engage in hacking behaviors to take out their frustration on others? And then how do we really begin to help these people or mitigate the negative effects or release the people who are messing with everybody else's?
Would Rob's example of somebody clipping toenails in the lunchroom be considered somebody who's overtly, or they probably don't know? See, that stat astounds me, that percentage of people actually know that they're causing harm, right? Because then you consider the number of people that are probably causing harm, but they don't know it. They don't think they are, right?
You ever had somebody do that on an airplane? Oh my gosh.
I have that in my book, in the Jerk-Free Workplace, in a survey I did for that book. That was one of the pet peeves that showed up, people clipping their toenails in meetings for the lunchroom.
Oh my gosh.
What leader allows that? So there's a part of me that says it's so disrespectful, it's so disengaging. And number one, either it is a hacker behavior or it is somebody with absolutely horrid social skills, in which case the leader should be helping them bring up their social skills or helping them not engage in behaviors. Like, if you want to know I get nervous, my neck starts to itch. That literally made my neck start to
Sherene, can you grab the book Navigate over your left shoulder? Because people are asking how they get it, where they get it, and what it is.
It's on Amazon, and it is the 2nd edition. And I would love it if you got it. I love this book. It's the labor of my heart. I wanted something as simple as Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages that would just radically change lives and leaders around the world. And this is what I was able to create. And I'm really proud of the fact that Gary Chapman endorsed it and said, Navigate's insights will enhance all of your relationships as you better understand yourself, family, friends, and coworkers. So it's an easy read. Thank you very much for asking and for letting me share that with you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, I'm sure
we encourage everyone to pick up a copy of that book.
You'll have tons of people buying it from our show.
I have a quick green flag story that you were saying something, Sherene, that it just popped into my head that just happened last week that I think is a green flag. And I always look for those when I'm interacting with my clients, when I'm doing talks. So I was doing a workshop just last week, half-day workshop. They were working on an extra 120 people in the room, working on an exercise of when they turned a difficult situation into a yes, where they were inclined to say no. And this young woman got up from the back of the room and she shared how, okay, I'll share one. And in this case, my customer was Kevin. And I said, Kevin, as in Kevin, the CEO? She said, yes, Kevin, the CEO. I said, okay. She said, yeah, Kevin came to me with the stupidest idea. Like, it was a stupid idea. This is probably the stupidest idea Kevin has ever come to us with. And I said to my coworker here, that's a stupid idea. We're not doing that. And so everybody's laughing. And then they talked about how they did figure out to get that to a yes. But the fact that she could stand up in a room full of 120 people and call out the CEO for bringing a stupid, dumbass idea to them, I thought was brilliant.
That's great.
And so I applauded them on their psychologically safe environment for being able to do that.
Absolutely.
For a president to be comfortable with that sets the tone, because
Totally.
there's a humility in allowing somebody to say, hey, you're not thinking right. And
Yeah.
I don't believe that all feedback is equally valid, but I believe that all feedback should be treated with equal respect. And so I might get some feedback that I think is harsh or unfair or unreasonable. And instead of taking it on and becoming a hacker, which my mind has already done, I'll just repeat back what I heard them say.
Yeah.
So you would prefer, and then state it back. And usually if it's in a group, I'll then turn it to the other people. What about the rest of you? And that way people are cued that I am safe. And here's what I say with the people in my life, and when I do training for organizations, I will always be the safest person on the planet to do conflict resolution with. I'm just going to be, I don't say this, but the bottom line is I'm going to be psychologically safe. And at the end of the day, I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. And I want the organization to flourish. And it's how we handle it. So many of us are afraid of conflict, and we think conflict is the problem. Conflict isn't the problem. It's how conflict is handled. And so when the leader models that it is okay to disagree, that conflict is not to be feared, but to be treated with respect, and really toes the line on we will treat each other with respect and civility, it's amazing. The organization immediately turns. And when the leader doesn't set the rules, it's tough. And I keep thinking back to, I think it was Stephen who asked, what if it's your boss or two people up and the golden child? And it's like, it's going to be really hard to deal with. And I would just, what I would do tongue in cheek is say, you got to read this, and then can I have a chat with you?
Right. It's a great book for Christmas.
Podcast, or share it with them and just say, I want to give you some feedback. I understand that your experience with them is different, but here's what I'm experiencing. We had a guy on the staff when I was a graduate assistant, and he did zingers at people, and they were getting ready to promote somebody to assistant director. And I went in with the other graduate assistant and said something to the leader. And I said, hey, you need to know this is what he says and how he's treated. Her name was Katie. And that woman was brave enough. That man was married to a vice president at the university, and she was brave enough to not promote him because she listened to our hearts and to our concerns. And I think when anybody cares enough and is brave enough to come as a leader and say to you, there's a problem, want to make you aware of it, and you do that respectfully, that then becomes the leader's problem. And I go back to, the leader will tell you who they are, believe them, and then you need to say, what do I need to do to mitigate the negative effects of this if that leader is unready, unwilling, or unable to change? Yeah. And sometimes they're just so bamboozled and it's just a snow job. It's just fascinating how they manipulate the leaders as they know that one day somebody will say this isn't right. So it doesn't make the leader necessarily a bad person. They're either unaware or they're afraid. But tell yourself the truth, and bright people always have options. You can go to different things within an organization. You have the ability in today's world where there's still unemployment problems and turnover problems to go to a new organization and then ask questions. Always ask questions, not from the HR people and not from the leader, but from the people you'll be working with, and really listen to what's said and what isn't said. Because if you're going to jump ship, land in a healthy pond, and you will breathe and you will flourish, and you do not have to run your psychological or your physical health in an organization that if you were to leave, we'll hire somebody to replace you and forget you very quickly. That is the sad truth of it.
Yeah.
And if you're a year or two away from retirement, stay. Don't make financially unwise situations, but figure out how to mitigate the negative effects when you do not have the power. That's problem manage.
I had a brilliant manager when you're talking about conflict. That very quickly, my first job out of school, and she said, we're going to disagree, which is what you said, but here's how we're going to handle it in every meeting. I'm going to appoint somebody. She said, I was a debater in high school. I'm going to appoint somebody to debate it, the ideas with the person who suggests it. And we would literally, you suggest the cons and you suggest it was perfect. And everything came out on the table. Anyway, I can't believe how quickly it went. I always say this, that, you know, we're just getting into it and the time is up. But it's been such a pleasure to have you as our guest host. Mike, you want to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sherene. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your brilliance. I encourage our listeners to pick up a copy of her book. You read it yourself and then you sneak it onto your boss's desk is a little strategy that I always encourage.
And I want to remind everybody that we will not be here on Christmas Day.
Correct.
I know how disappointed you are. So our next Every Other Wednesday is on January the 8th. Mark it on your calendars, January the 8th. Hopefully all 4 Musketeers will be here. You know, right now it's just a crazy time of year. Sherene, thank you so much again. And be careful on those ski hills, not too fast.
Thank you. You all were so fun. Thank you for letting me play with you. Thank you for the questions. What a fun, thoughtful conversation. You all rock.
Thank you. And I want to wish everybody, whatever you celebrate, a happy, healthy holiday and Happy New Year as well. Bye, everybody.
And a safe and happy and fun holiday season.
Yeah.
Bye, all. Thank you, everyone.